Hey guys, this is Scott. This is part 3 of the Philco Town and Country. Just kind of an update on where I'm at. So as I left off last time, I pulled the set apart and got down to the chassis. And we were getting ready to start working on the electrolytic caps down here on the front bottom of the set, and I've done that. So you can see some of the caps that I've changed. A resistor change here. This was a paper cap, okay, that was replaced with this 1 microfarad cap here. And then there was a canned electrolytic right here that I was going to restuff, but since made the decision to just stick in a strip here, and it'll be grounded right there. So I still have one more of the electrolytics to do. Testing the 2 electrolytics that came out, they both were in pretty good shape. A little bit weak, but probably would have been comfortable leaving those electrolytics in there. Of course, I haven't tested this one yet, but irregardless, since I have the set down to this level, it just makes complete sense to put in a brand new set of electrolytic caps all the way around. The other thing that I have done is done some work on this circuit board, and this is really nice. The fact that these clips just basically clip this down to the chassis and solder on, and I was able to unsolder all the clips and not have to disconnect any wiring to the circuit board in order to get it out and be able to manipulate it to change the caps. Now there's not a whole lot of caps on here. I think there's 1 there, 2, that's new, 3, 4, 5. So there were only 5 paper caps or black bombs that were on there, and you know, they needed to go. So that was pretty straightforward. And if I can turn the set around here, I'll show you a couple other things that we need to do. You can see here, you can get a look at the bottom of the circuit board, and it's in really good shape. And the traces on this are not too bad to work with. You still have to be a little bit careful changing components on a circuit board of this vintage. You can very easily pull some of those traces up, but I didn't have too much of a problem. The last thing that I need to do on this board before I secure it back down is to take a look at this K network, or this couplet. And this is just a series of capacitors. These white looking ones here are capacitors, and these darker ones here are resistors. And what that is basically a coupling between the horizontal output tube and the horizontal multiplier. And you can see here, it looks on the schematic just like any other couplet, like K4 here, for example. But the difference is this is encoded, and the components are completely inside. And on this couplet, as you can see, they're all exposed. So while I was measuring the values of these resistors with this couplet in the circuit, this 2.2 meg resistor was measuring about 900K, so it was way off. And a couple of these others were drifted pretty high too. So what I'm going to do is remove this from the circuit, get it out and remeasure it, and make sure that there's nothing in the circuitry that's would give me a false indication on those resistance readings. And then I have all new replacement resistors. I'm just going to go ahead since I've got it out, and replace all the resistors on that little couplet and put it back in. So that'll be the last thing I do on this board, and then I'll be ready to re-secure this board. I'll go to the other side and finish up that electrolytic cap. There are my replacement caps that we'll be using to replace that 4-section can. And then the last piece will be to work on removing this circuit board. There's a cap there that needs to be replaced, and a cap here that needs to be replaced. And then there's one more of those couplets there, and I'll be checking that. And if I need to do some replacement there, I'll do that. And then hopefully, you can see here's some other K networks. There's 2 of them here that are completely encapsulated. And I'm hoping that those are good. I'm not sure. I don't think there's one on this circuit board to contend with. But there may be another one right there. Anyway, hopefully those are good, and I won't have to deal with refabricating those. These are so much easier to deal with. Then after that, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to check these diodes. These are the voltage doubling diodes that are in the power supply. And if you remember from the last part, I was looking at the fact that the B plus and all the power coming off the power supply was low. I did check the filter choke in the power supply, and it does appear to be okay. And I have a strong suspicion that I'm going to need to replace these diodes in order to get the proper voltages going through this set. But I'll worry about that after I get all the components changed on these 2 circuit boards, and of course that last electrolytic cap, and then later. But I wanted to make sure I got everything changed on the boards and on the front side before we put it back together and do any other troubleshooting that we may need to do. Okay guys, got that K5 network removed from the circuit board, and you can see that I have 2 of the resistors removed. Those are the 6.8K, and how do I know that? It's really nice that on the back side of this K network, okay, you can see what the resistors and the capacitor should be. And there's the other thing that's that's hard for you to get a measurement on. There appears to be some type of lacquer over this, which will give your multimeter a little bit of fits. But where I first thought this 2.8K or 2.8 meg or 2.2 meg resistor was a problem, actually when I got it out of the circuit, it's actually right on. And the only problematic resistors are the 6.8Ks. And let's see if we can measure. And I'm sorry if the camera's jerking here, guys. I'm going to try to show you what I saw on measuring the 6.8K resistors. And this is kind of hard to do, and there's also still some of that lacquer on getting those out. But here is a 6.8K resistor, and I'm actually getting some wild readings here, and I'm not sure why. It's probably because I don't have it hooked up right, but there we go. Oh, that should be accurate there. There you go. Sorry about that, guys. But 8.37K. So that's, that's a good 25% off on that one. And the other one measured kind of the same. So I apologize for that. I just couldn't get these hooked up. And again, these have some type of lacquer on them or some type of cover. So it makes it really, really hard to measure, but you can measure coming out of these pins from the top if you kind of scraped a little bit. Maybe I can get this one here to measure a little bit more easy and make a little bit better video than what that just was. 'Cause that was stupid. Oh. Man, these are hard to get a hold of. Okay, so you can see that's well above 6.8K. So what I'm going to do is put some good 6.8K, and these are metal film resistors. These are good resistors. Yeah, there you go, right there, right on. So that's what we're gonna solder in to these two cups right here, and put this back in, and it will go right back into the circuit board, and we'll be in good shape. Okay. All right. Okay, guys. Here is the K5 network after I've done the resistor changes on it. This piece is actually the horizontal oscillator. Technically, that's what this is. And this is basically taking the place of a tube. It's how you can build a TV set in 1962 and put it into such a small package by creating some of these integrated little networks. And you can actually see it's really like a miniature circuit board in and of itself. You can see the traces there. And then of course the nice little touch that they put the value of the components on there. And I mentioned before this had some type of covering or sealant on it. I don't know whether, I don't think it was lacquer. I was calling it lacquer, but it was some type of sealant that they used to encapsulate these components. And I was measuring bad on both those 6.8Ks, and I've decided that since I've got this thing out, I might as well go ahead and change them all. So I used metal oxide resistors on those 6.8Ks, and then I came back with these carbon comp values for the 560, the 39K, and the 560K. I didn't have those in the metal oxide. These are 1 watts and these are halves. It's rated for half-watt resistors on this whole board. So the last one that I had to change is this 2.2 meg. This first resistor right here. So I thought I'd show you how that's accomplished. It's not real difficult to do. Basically, what I do is take the soldering iron and heat up one end. Now the only thing that's difficult about this is actually keeping the component still, but I can heat one end of this up and then just take this little screwdriver and pry on it and it should come up. And the other trick is to do this without burning yourself. So this gets pretty hot, but whatever that sealant was they used on there has to melt off as well. And you can see there it just came right up and falls out right there. And I don't know if you can see that on the camera or not, but there's some of that whatever that substance is that they use to seal this up. So what I do now is just take the iron and go into these slots and try to melt the rest of that goo off, so that when I come back in with my new component, that solder will stick. And so the other thing that I'll do, and I'll get my little magnifier out here so I can see. Sorry about that, guys, but I'm blind on small items. But I'll just put a little bit of solder in that connection there. Try to get it going. And the reason for this is so that when I come back in with one lead, people calling me while I'm trying to make a video. I don't know what's up with that. And a little bead of solder there will help. Now the thing to do, next thing to do is take my resistor that I'm coming back in with, and I'll just clip those leads. Pretty small, actually. It doesn't take much lead. And this is actually really the tricky part here, is trying to get it positioned on there to where that lead basically just touches down into the end of that connection point. And I still got this one a little bit long. I'd say those leads now are maybe 1/8 of an inch at the most. And the trick is to just get one started, get one end of it soldered into place, and get it connected to where it'll hold down. And again, guys, this is if you're good at soldering, this shouldn't be a problem for you, but if you're not so hot at it, this can be a little bit difficult, because you can burn yourself pretty quick. This is very small, as you can probably tell. And it has to be pretty hot to get it to set up. Okay, this one's being a little bit stubborn. That should hold it there. Actually, I didn't get it. Start over here. I don't quite have enough solder down in there to get it to catch. There we go. Now that's going to work. Okay, now, well, I say that, and it did not get in there. This is the course, the one I'm having the most trouble with is the one I decided to film. Okay. Put a little bit more solder in there. What is going on here? Okay, that got it in there. And then I'll just put some more. Okay guys, after a little stubbornness and resistance, no pun intended, from this resistor, I've got it. So I hope you enjoyed that little look at soldering from the back of my hand. Apologize for that, but working on this little module is not easy. And anyway, it'll go right back in here. I need to solder this back into place, and this board will be done. And I find it kind of ironic that those resistors in there had drifted somewhat, and I really wasn't having any horizontal issues with this TV to begin with, but and this obviously appears to be a low hour set, and I'll show you some more and a little bit of why I believe that to be true. But these resistors on this board are in pretty good shape. Just show you how I tested a few of these. I'm not, a lot of times restorers will go through, and once they have a board out like this, they'll just replace every resistor while they've got this out, and I'm just not going to do that on this one. These resistors are still doing really well. So let's take this one for instance. Let's see, that's blue, gray, orange. That's, what is that, 63K. 63K. And we're at 68K, so not too far off there. This little dude right here, he's brown, green, green. So that's 1.5 meg. Let's see if we can test him real quick. 1.5 meg. This guy right here is orange, orange, brown. So that would be 330K, or 330 ohms. Now he's at 395. He's a little high. What's that guy down there? Red, red, yellow. Red, red, yellow. Should be 220K. And it's a little low, but it looks like it's being messed with. That capacitor in there is probably messing with it a little bit, but it's a little low, but pretty close. Let's see, yellow, what is that? Yellow, blue, orange. So 46K. 49.2. So, these old tube sets, pretty tolerant of these resistors drifting a little bit. They may drift a little bit more in the years to come, but this board is not particularly difficult to get off. So if I have any issues going forward, you know, I can easily pop this board back off. You don't have to disconnect any wires, and you can do that while the set's assembled. So I think what I'm going to do now is solder this unit back in and secure this back down, and then move on to the rest of the electrolytic caps. Get those buttoned up before we address the circuit board. Interrupt this video for a little shout out to I Am a Junk Collector. Looking at my 14-inch RCA, he's just recently got a 17-inch. So Don, here's a little motivation for you to get after your 17-inch and get it restored. You're gonna love it. Nice little TVs once they're restored. And of course there's a series when I restored this last year on my channel, if you're interested. But come on, Don, get your TV up and going. Oh, one thing real quick before we move on to the electrolytics is you might be curious as to just what exactly are these things made out of, these resistors that came out of that K network. And the best I can tell, I took one and put it into the vise and kind of busted it in half. And it just simply looks like what you'd find in a carbon composite type resistor from back in the day. They're just a little bit unique in that they have no color code. They just have these little gold bands on the end, which I think are the conductive piece to it, obviously. And then you can see here some of that material. I'm not real sure, again, what it is. It's kind of sticky. I've been calling it lacquer because that's what it reminds me of. But anyway, that's what that those resistors were, how they were constructed. And it's kind of interesting to me that they had drifted quite a bit more than any of the other standard carbon resistors had on this board. So anyway, I just thought that was kind of interesting. I figured somebody would ask or was curious of what those are, and that's, best I can tell, that's what they are. I've moved on to removing this can capacitor here, this 4-section can. I think it has a 140 microfarad and a 100 at 450, and then a 20 and a 10 at 350. So this is kind of an interesting can capacitor that I ran into here, and I want to explain to you why. So first of all, let's just put it on the checker. And I've got it on the 140 section, and it's coming in at about 150 microfarads. So I'm going to go ahead and check for leakage, and this eye should close. And then the higher the voltage rating and the larger the microfarads, the longer it will take. But the key here is, will this eye open, and will it open completely, thereby not being leaky. And you can see the eye is opening up, and it's going to open up all the way. So that particular section of capacitor is good, and then to discharge it, you can see that it's holding a charge pretty well, and now it's discharged. So just for comparison, here is the new capacitor that I was going to use, and pardon me while I attach this capacitor. So this is 150 microfarad, and the reason it's 150 microfarads is I don't have 140 microfarad, which it calls for. So we'll do the same test on it. And And yeah, it's spot on to 150 microfarads, which you would expect since it's a brand new cap. And let's check it for leakage. And we're getting kind of the same result. It's opening, and it's opening slowly, which it should, but it should open all the way, which I think it's going to do. Yes, as the eye opens, and it's actually taking a little longer to open than the old cap, but nonetheless it is open. So nevertheless, that capacitor, if installed in the set, would do exactly what it's supposed to do. And then discharging it, the same story. It'll take it a moment, but now that cap's discharged. So anyway, the reason I wanted to show you this was I could go through all the other sections of this capacitor and show you that this cap is right on in all 4 sections at all voltage ratings and is not leaky in any one section. So I've made the decision that I'm going to put this cap back in. And of course, a lot of the traditionalists out there will go, oh, you're crazy, you should just go ahead and change it, you never know when it's going to go bad. That is true. However, I've never ran into one quite like this that's this old, and you can just tell by looking at the bottom of this cap. There is no indication of any of the insides of this cap coming out. The set was the areas that this capacitor operates in was not an issue on the set going in, and I'm not sure that I could stuff all those capacitors into this can. It may work. It would be kind of close. The only other option would be to go ahead and do a bunch of strips in there, and possibly having to drill another hole in that shield. So the easiest thing to do is just to put this right back in, and I'm very comfortable doing that because, like I said, this cap, man, it's another indication that this is a low hour set. And in the next video, I'll probably show you the inside of the flyback cage. I don't think I've showed that in this series yet, and once you see that, you'll understand what I'm talking about. This was a low hour set, and if it wasn't for the fact that they'd used some of those black bombs and a couple of paper caps in these circuit boards, I'm convinced the set would have played perfectly as it was, and I wouldn't have needed to open it up at all. But I'm going to go ahead and leave this in and button this back up, and in the next video I will begin tackling that circuit board where there's 2 or 3 caps on there we need to replace, and there's also another one of these K networks that we need to take a look at. Then after we get that accomplished, it'll be time to reassemble the set and do a test and see if we've got the set playing correctly. Okay? So until the next time, thanks for watching, guys. Talk to you later.